This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon. When we had Eric Paul from Best Disney Trips come to the radio station, we just couldn't pack it all in. There's just too much ground to cover. So we brought him back. So thank you for being back.
Pleasure. And thanks for having me.
So other shows have had other topics, and this show will focus on Epcot. So let's talk about Epcot. So what's sort of like just give me what is the theme of Epcot?
Epcot's probably my favorite park in all of Disney. There was definitely a very futuristic vibe to the whole thing when, Walt Disney sort of had this concept. It actually stands for Experimental Prototype City of Tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So it's all about, Walt's infatuation with progress and the future. And also his, belief in people and just, the shared experiences of different parts of the world and different cultures. And, that's how the whole World Showcase part of it kind of works together. I love Epcot. It's when I was a kid, there wasn't that many rides, so it wasn't that exciting. They've done a very good job of adding some really cool rides there, so now kids want to go. And then for adults, just to me, walking through the countries, and we'll get into all of them, I'm sure. But as soon as you get to World Showcase, you make a left. Mexico's the first country. My personal favorite thing to do: grab a margarita, frozen margarita, and just walk through. And then you get to
because it's 5 o'clock somewhere,
right? Then you hit Germany and you get a beer there, and then you're walking and you're getting France, where they have all those all their really great concoctions, and then you hit United Kingdom with their pubs and. Drinking around World Showcase is very, very popular. But I definitely, as much as I go, I definitely don't get to do it as much which is just being able to just walk through the countries, relax, have a drink, and kind of just really admire and appreciate everything there. It's really, really amazing how they do it all.
What's sort of interesting is that Epcot is so much bigger than it feels.
Yeah.
When you look at it sort of either on a map or you just look at the different rides and foods and countries. Yeah, you're like, okay, but when you're there, it's like, oh my god, what a schlep, to go from.
It's definitely big, but it's actually the easiest park to navigate because it's got two parts. It's got Future World, which has basically all different rides and attractions and things of that nature, and then you come to World Showcase, which is just a very large lagoon with countries that go around it, pretty much in a circle. So you just have to walk around the whole lagoon to kind of go through the whole thing.
Now, for those who've never been there, is it sort of like a World's Fair?
Yeah.
Because they don't do them anymore?
Yeah. I definitely think so. They also, now they have the Flower and Garden Festival in the spring. They have the Food and Wine Festival in the fall. And what they do, and the Food and Wine is really the big one, but what they even do for the Flower and Garden is they make these smaller kiosks in all the countries, and they have different types of, cocktails and drinks and snacks and little types of like appetizer food type things. The Food and Wine Festival is really amazing because not only will they have the countries that are there, which are, Mexico, Norway, China, Germany, Italy, the United States, Japan, Morocco, France, the United Kingdom, and Canada, they'll bring in other countries and set up kiosks for, other countries, Brazil, Jamaica. There's really tons of them. It's really amazing. And every year they kind of add new ones. It's really quite an experience. I definitely recommend anyone that doesn't, if you're thinking of going to Disney and maybe you want to make it more of an adult type trip, go during Food and Wine. You'll definitely appreciate it and have a great time.
Is there a separate extra charge for the Food and Wine?
The only thing that costs extra is whatever food you buy. So yeah, there's no extra. It's the park admission. So whatever ticket you have to the park, that gets you into Epcot, and then whatever you're buying while you're there. beauty of it with the meal plan is a lot of the items and a lot of the kiosks count as snacks. So
Wow.
you could definitely use your snack credits. They also do cool things. They give you like a passport book and you can go through and, do things with it. They sell gift cards so that you could, just buy put $50 on a gift card and walk around. This way you're not always, charging things or whatever. And, every time you get a snack or a drink, you just kind of deduct it from there. But the cool thing is a lot of things count as snacks.
All right, let's talk about some of the countries. In Norway, isn't there something with Elsa and Anna?
Yeah, so Norway's where they do Frozen. So there's a very popular princess meal there called at a restaurant called Akershus. And then you have Frozen Ever After, which is the ride that's based on Frozen. For anyone that had been to Epcot, in the last 15 years, 20 years, the ride that was in Norway, which was called the Maelstrom, it's actually the same physical ride. They didn't change the ride at all, but all they did was add Frozen to it. So now when you go into every room in this boat, there's something from, with Anna, Elsa, Olaf, or one of the characters from Frozen. And then they built a separate Anna and Elsa meet and greet there also as well, which is kind of funny how they do it. When Frozen first came out and Anna and Elsa obviously were the big thing, which they kind of still are, but more so when that movie first came out. I mean, they used to have, Anna and Elsa standing outside, and there was a wait, and I think it was 3 or 4 hours at a minimum to wait to meet them. Well, Disney got really smart with how they kind of do these meet and greets now, and the Anna and Elsa is a great example. Now, they are indoors. You kind of still wait outside. I mean, there is part of the line that goes inside, but basically when you get to the front, they take, 2 or 3 groups at a time and walk you into a separate room, which you get in there and Anna and Elsa are there, or, whatever character that you're going to see in different parts. You don't know that there's like 4 or 5 different rooms. So they're, quadrupling the capacity. So those days of 4-hour lines are gone. Now you're waiting 30, 40 minutes because they're just funneling people through it so much quicker. Kids don't know. And it's great for parents because you're not wasting so much of your day waiting to meet one character or 2 characters.
The problem is, let's assume there's a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
Do you really want to waste 1/4 of your time on one attraction?
I remember. I have 3 boys, but my son, who's now 8, when he was still in a stroller and napping, I remember I waited on that 3.5-hour line just because they wanted to meet him, and I was like, he's sleeping anyway, so I'll just wait here. And I had my margarita, and I was fine.
Now, I'm trying to think what else. Are there any other rides in either Norway, Mexico?
Yeah. So there's only 2 as of right now. There's only 2 rides in all of World Showcase. You have Frozen Ever After, which is what we just talked about. There's a boat ride in Mexico, which is called the Grand Fiesta Tour with Donald and the 3 Caballeros. That ride's been there for a long time. They added, Donald Duck and the 3 Caballeros to it a number of years ago to make it more, exciting. And now the kids want to go on it because Donald's on there and he does funny things when they're on there. I've always loved that ride. And what the changes they made to it were really good. But I always like being on that ride. The other cool thing is one of the restaurants in Mexico. There's 2. There's one that's actually in the pavilion that's called the San Angel Inn. When you first get on that boat ride, it actually goes like you can actually sit on the water and kind of see the boats as they're going into the ride. It's a little dark, but it's kind of cool. So those are the only 2 rides right now. They're actually they just announced last year that they're building a new ride in France based on the Ratatouille movie. The ride actually already exists in Disneyland in Paris, and they're just bringing it here. So
are they physically bringing it?
No,
because you said like the electric parade. You said they shipped
out.
Well, right.
They
shipped out to California.
Yes, exactly. No, well, that was actual floats. No. They are replicating it. Thank you.
Okay.
They are replicating it, and they're adding it to France. They're also not in World Showcase, but they're building a Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster in Epcot as well, which is supposed to come out, I think, 2021 or something like that.
Oh wow! Of all the different places in the World Showcase, what are the foods that grabbed you?
I think for each person, it's what kind of cuisine you like.
I'm asking for you.
Yeah.
What grabbed you?
I love Mexico. I love China. I really like, there's a restaurant right outside of Morocco on the lagoon called Spice Road Table, which is really, really good. those are my favorite kind of foods. Chinese. I'm not a huge. I mean, I like sushi. I don't really love it. I'm not a huge sushi person, but I do like Japanese food. But that's why I say China. So definitely Mexico. Definitely China. I love Mediterranean food. So Spice Road Table. There's also. I mean, there's so many good options. I mean, in Italy alone, there's 3 restaurants, table service restaurants, 2 of which you could make reservations at. One's called Via Napoli, one's called Tutto Italia. There's also another restaurant there that you can't make a reservation at, but it's kind of like in a wine cellar, which is really good. Via Napoli is really, really great for families. They do more of like fresh pizzas and stuff like that. They have some of the traditional dishes, but the pizzas are really what they're known for. In fact, when we went there, you can get a pizza. It's like $40. It's like a meter long. But you could split that with 5-6 people, get a couple of dishes. It's like that fresh homemade, baked dough and, really good ingredients. So those are probably my favorite restaurants, but I mean, I send people to everyone. I mean, people that love German food, they really, they love there's a buffet in Germany that they really like. There's a steakhouse in Canada called Le Cellier that's excellent. You really, I always tell people, Epcot, it's really the cuisine that you like. I mean, you tell me what cuisine you like and I'm going to send you to a really good restaurant. I mean, there's just too many good options there to mention.
Well, the one thing I kind of noticed about Epcot was if it's hot, there's no place to go. There's no place to like cool down because it's just so open and there's a lot of walking. And it just seems like the sun can really just beat on you. Yeah, no, that's definitely true, especially in World Showcase. Well, I mean, the countries that don't have the rides, they either have walk-through exhibits or they'll have movies and stuff like that. So you can do a little bit of things indoors. But you are right; it's definitely a big walking park, especially if you're going through the countries, and especially if you're all the way on the other side where like the U.S. pavilion is, or Japan, or Morocco, or France, and you got to get to the front of the park. I mean, other than there's a boat that kind of goes from the U.S. to like the front of World Showcase and from Morocco, but I mean that's maybe saving you like 8 or 9 minutes, nothing crazy, and you still got to walk the rest. Like I noticed, if you really have to sort of be strategic about how you approach Epcot, because you don't want to go to like say Spaceship Earth.
Oh, of course, yeah,
and then go to Italy.
Yeah, and
then go to Future World East, because it's just if you're carrying a lot of stuff and it's hot and it's far, that time issue really becomes sort of oppressive.
I always tell this to clients, and this is kind of how I say, look, there's a flow and a process to how Disney works, without a doubt, and you definitely don't want to be going from one side of the park to the other, back to the other side. That's kind of what we take pride in and what we specialize in, and when we design trips for people is we know how to maximize the time and make it efficient so that you're not sort of doing that. Yeah, so if I have someone that when we talk about fast passes with Epcot works in 2 tiers, and they basically take their 3 main rides and put it in one tier, and you can only pick one, which is Frozen Ever After in Norway, Soarin', and Test Track, which are both in Future World. If I have a family that they want to fast pass Frozen Ever After, then I won't do it at 9 o'clock in the morning if they're coming from the front of the park, because then they got to go, and then they got to go all the way back to Future World. We'll save it for the afternoon or maybe right after lunch. So yeah, there's definitely a flow and a process. You definitely want to make sure that you're, strategically hitting certain things and, not making yourself kind of crazy, because, as you said, it can get hot. And even though, all these attractions are indoors, you still got to walk outside to get to them. So, and especially in Future World, I mean, there's a lot of different attractions that are, pretty close to each other. So when I have someone that's doing Test Track, Mission Space is right next to it. I'll do those back to back. When I have someone that's doing Soarin', Soarin's right next to the Seas with Nemo and Friends on one end and the Figment ride on the other end. So, we'll always, plan things accordingly so that, they're not kind of running crazy all over the place.
Let's talk about Soarin', because that is a wildly popular ride. Mm-hmm. Let's explain it to people who don't know what it is.
So Soarin's a ride. They basically you're sitting in a row of, I think it's 10 seats, and then when the ride, I'll call it a ride, but you physically don't go anywhere. But the seats actually get lifted and you're put in front of a gigantic IMAX screen. and it simulates you flying. When it first came out, it was just over parts of California. About I think 2 years ago, they did a couple things. Number one, they added a third theater, which was huge because the lines for these rides is just based on capacity. So they were funneling people into 2 different theaters. Now they're funneling them into 3. So it just has more capacity. So, whereas the line for Soarin' will definitely get, it's not going to be 5 minutes, but it won't get as crowded as fast as like a Test Track or even a Frozen Ever After, just because it has more capacity. But so they put you're in the seat, they put you in front of this giant IMAX screen, and it simulates you flying over, very famous, iconic places in the world.
I remember like the Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower, Monument Valley, Iguazu Falls in Brazil, Sydney Harbor. A couple of other, the Fiji Islands, different things. It takes you through a part of Africa where there's elephants roaming. The really cool thing that they do on Soarin' also is, one of the things I miss about the old Soarin' was when it was based on California, they would fly you over the orange groves, and they would spray in the smell of orange, so you smelled like you could actually smell the oranges. So now they took that away.
Smell around.
Right. So now they do that a few times. They do it so they take you over the Taj Mahal, and you smell like the pine trees, or there's like these certain bushes that are like basically approaching it. And then when you're in Africa, you can actually smell the grass.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's really, really cool. And then of course it ends in Disney with fireworks and what have you. I always tell people, it's definitely one of the coolest rides you'll ever go on. It's also the only ride you'll ever go on where when it ends, everyone claps. It's amazing.
Yeah. What's interesting is the ride goes very fast.
Yep.
When by the time you get strapped in and you're ready to, quote, take off, it's like it goes so fast, but I don't know if it just feels that way because there's so much sensory input.
Yeah.
Because you're getting wind on your face, you're seeing this gigantic image in front of you that's all perfectly digitized, and then you have the smells.
Right.
So it's one of the few things that it's a whole experience. Your body is just going through a whole experience. I guess it tricks you to feel like you really are like flying and experiencing something that's not really there, because it's all basically a big illusion.
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a little anecdote. We had again, we go so often that, I can't say that if I go once and I don't get on something that I even, second guess it, just because we go so often now. But we were there, this was, I think, last year, and we were on the line, and one of my kids was wearing, a Knicks shirt or something, or Giant shirt, something, the New York football team. And the girl who was working there was from Brooklyn or somewhere in New York, and we were talking about New York because we're from there and we live there and everything. And when we got off the ride, she came up to us and said, "Do you want to ride again?" And so we were like, "Sure, of course we do. Why not?" But what I thought was really cool is that the way that they do it is before you get on the ride, they're placing you on a basically like a staging area where each person basically would fill a seat. So not only did she say, "Do you want to go on it?" but she had to basically reserve those seats for us ahead of time in order for us to do it, because she couldn't just kick people off. So I just thought it was kind of cool. It was like one of those Disney magic things where it wasn't just, you want to just go ride it again. It's not only are you going to ride again, but I saved spaces for you so that you could do it. Really cool.
All right, we'll be right back. Richard Solomon taking care of business with Eric Pohl on Disney. BestDisneyTrips.com.
Hi, this is Rory Cosgrove, and you're listening to Rich Solomon on WCWP 88.1 FM.
Richard Solomon, Eric Pohl, we are whizzing through time and space talking about the Epcot experience in Florida, in Orlando, Florida. And in case you don't know, Eric is just one of those people who knows everything about, planning a Disney trip. So bestdisneytrips.com. So now we're kind of talking about the different rides in Future World, East and West. And in no particular order, I guess, because I have a little map here. It says I'm going to just do Future World East. So Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth is actually the first thing that you kind of confront, right?
It's the big, huge golf ball.
Yeah.
That's what people associate it with.
Well, what is it supposed to be?
It's
like a radar antenna, or what is?
I actually don't know why it looks. I just think it was an iconic symbol, but it's probably you're probably right. It probably was built for a specific reason, but it's basically a ride through history. A very, very cool ride. For anyone that went on it, when it first came out, you'll remember that it was actually narrated by Walter Cronkite.
I don't remember that. Wow. Yeah.
And in fact, my older brother, and I always still quote it because it used to end. It used to end with this quote called, he used to say, "Today, tomorrow, and tomorrow's child." And this song used to come on where this woman sang about tomorrow's child. We still sing it to each other just because we always thought it was funny. Wow. But now it's Judi Dench that does it. And, it's basically a ride through history. It starts when, with the cavemen and everything. And it takes you throughout, history all up basically up until the creation of the computer. But it's a very, very cool ride. It's a slow moving ride, so anyone can go on it. And what they actually did a really cool thing with it because, some kids, even though it's a ride, some kids could get a little bored. But now what they do is they take your picture in the beginning of the ride, and as you're kind of coming back to Earth, because you're supposed to, basically leave Earth, as you're coming back in your spaceship, they have you answer all these questions, and then they play this video of your future where they basically take your picture that they took of you, and it looks like your head on top of one of the cartoons from the Jetsons. But the kids all get a kick out of it because, they make silly faces and whatever. And, you create your future. You have a flying car, or you're, living in outer space or under the ocean or something. And then when you get off the ride, you can actually go into this entire area where there's different playthings to do. But the main thing is you could take that video that you just made and you could email it to yourself or your friends or your family. So the kids really get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I remember there was this whole big room of stuff.
Yeah.
What's deceiving is that, when from the outside, you can't tell that there's all this stuff going on the inside.
Right.
Because you kind of go on this gigantic, ascent up.
Yep.
And then you kind of go down, or you go down backward. I forgot if you go down sort of backwards.
Yeah,
but
it takes you backwards.
Yeah, you go backwards, but you look behind you. And it's just, the thing that I kind of thought was, how do they put all this stuff in what is essentially a sphere?
Right.
Because you just don't. It's antithetical to think that there's so much stuff inside what doesn't look like a big enough space to house all that.
It's amazing. And trust me, I go on every time I go on. I'm always looking to see, where am I? Am I at the top? Am I in the middle? Am I in the bottom? And then when you go backwards and you're kind of going back to Earth, they're distracting you with this video of your future, so you're not really even paying attention to what's kind of going on around you.
All right, Project Tomorrow. What's that? Inventing the wonders of the future. Is that all the stuff that is inside Spaceship Earth?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see now. What do we have? Test Track, presented by Chevrolet.
Yeah. So Test
40
Track.
inches. Yeah.
Test Track. So basically, in all of Epcot, you have Test Track, and you have Soarin', that are the two main rides. They both have 40-inch height restrictions, which is great because most kids, especially, once you reach, 5, 6 years old, most kids are 40 inches and everyone can go on it. It's a very cool ride. You get to design your own car of the future, and then it takes you basically on a test track where you are supposed to be testing the car that you created for speed and efficiency and, a lot of other stuff. And it gives you a score, and, you could, in each little test, it tells you, of everyone that's sitting in the vehicle with you, whose car did the best for that specific test. It's a fun ride. You basically get seated in what looks like a 6-passenger convertible car. And it's indoors, and it does all these things. It goes up hills, it goes around different things, it stops short, it's, simulates as if you have to do a sharp turn, if a car comes out of nowhere. And then the big thing is at the end, it takes you outside, and it takes you around the track, and it gets up to 69 or 70 miles an hour. But it's no different than being in a convertible on the LIE going, regular speed. But it's cool.
Now, Are any of the cars defectively designed and you like crash?
No. All the cars are the same. All the cars are the same. It's yeah. I mean, the physical car that you're riding is the same, but everyone, the car that you've tested, the car that you've designed, is really what they're pretending that you're trying.
Because I can see a situation where I design a car and I can see at the end of the ride, gotta go back to the drawing board.
Right. Exactly. No, I mean, you can see it'll tell you that, because maybe your tires are too big or too small, and maybe you're efficient but you're not fast, and there's power. I mean, there's all different types of ratings that they give you. So it's a really, really fun ride. The only problem with it breaks down a lot.
Is it too technical?
Yeah, I don't know. Number one, because of that outdoor part. So if there's any lightning in the area, they'll shut it down. But it's definitely a ride. If you either have a fast pass for it or you're planning to do it, pay attention to the app, because it does close a lot. They're pretty good at trying to get it restarted as quickly as possible. But I remember one trip alone, we ended up going to that ride first, I think 3 separate days in like an 8-day time period. We went right there, and every morning it opened up late because something went wrong.
Let's talk about the fast pass window, because we didn't really ever get to that in the other shows that we've talked about. So when you have a fast pass, you can go from 11 to 12 at some ride. So you can't enter before 11, but how much? So you got to get, but you have to get in there at that time slot.
Yeah. So basically, for the rides, they give you an hour window, and it's whatever hour you've chosen when you made the fast pass. So yeah, it could be from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Whatever. Yeah.
What they don't tell you is you actually have 14 minutes additional after that of additional time. So you really have an hour and 14 minutes. But yes, if you go an hour and 15 minutes, they're probably going to tell you that it's too late. I will say this: Disney's very accommodating. So, I was the last time I was there. I remember we were on like Space Mountain or something, and they actually said to someone, "Your fast pass is not for another 7 hours." So they're not going to let you on if you come out 7 hours early. But if you're a little bit early or a little bit late, for the most part, they're pretty accommodating. But yeah, you have an hour window with an unwritten 14 minutes additional time that they don't publicize, but that exists. And then if you fast pass a show, it's normally 15 or 20 minutes to get there. So those are the ones you have to kind of pay more attention to.
Right, because the shows really do have to start.
Right. Yeah. Well, not only that, but they basically give you like a 15, 20-minute window, because once that window closes, they then start landing in the people on the standby line. So they're filling in the space, and for that they can't just let more people in. If they're full, they're full.
Now in Epcot, are there any shows?
No shows in Epcot.
Okay, so that takes care of that.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's go. What else is there? We talked about the Epcot character spot. I remember that. That's where you can kind of meet, like Daisy Duck or somebody and take a picture. Kind of, I think I hit on this before, but or maybe it was the last show. Epcot has 2 different tiers. So tier 1 is Soarin', Test Track, and Frozen Ever After, and you got to pick one of Fast Pass I'm talking about, and your other 2 Fast Passes have to come from tier 2. The thing with Epcot is there's not as many, I'll say, great choices for your tier 2 Fast Passes. Because, what I mostly do for people, I'll do Spaceship Earth, I'll do Mission Space. After that, the Epcot character spot is probably the next busiest attraction. Because the other items that you could choose from, like the Seas with Nemo and Friends, or Turtle Talk with Crush, or the Figment Ride, unless you're going during one of the 4 really busy weeks of the year, which is the February break in, the February vacation week in New York, Easter week, Thanksgiving week, and Christmas week. The lines for some of those other rides like Figment and Nemo are really never more than 5 or 10 minutes, and there's no reason to get a fast pass for that. So the Epcot character spot, I think, is a great fast pass option. It's also very good to sort of, if you're not doing a character meal, you can meet 3 or 4 characters, in one spot. And the good thing about it is, if you're doing a character meet and greet throughout, in one of the parks, you're normally waiting on a line to meet one character. And then if you want to go meet another character, it's another line in a different part of the park. The character spot, you're waiting on one line, and if you fast pass it, well, then you're in the front of the line. And when you get to the front, you then go from character A, B, C, D.
just right
Hop,
in a
skip,
row.
jump.
Yeah, and it's normally Mickey, Minnie, and then either one or two of the other Pluto, Donald, Goofy, from that group. And then across from that, there's another character spot, but doesn't have a fast pass, which right now has Baymax from Big Hero 6, and then some of the characters from Inside Out.
Aha. All right. Let's talk about Turtle Talk, because that's a fave.
Yep.
I like that one.
Turtle Talk's very cool. I mean, the kids love it. So basically, as soon as you get off the Finding Nemo ride, you go into this sort of small theater, and it's got this huge, looks like a television screen, and Crush is the turtle from the Finding Nemo movies, and he actually comes and interacts with the kids. He asks questions, he answers questions, and whoever's playing Crush is normally pretty good at it, and
I thought from an improv and just sort of great intellectual point, it was very challenging that they were funny, fast paced, were very specific, and really kind of grabbed the kids. They really touched them, you know, and it was funny, and it was really light, and it was.
They're very engaging, and they do a great job. I mean, every time we've done it, it's always the kids have always had fun, and
no two shows are ever really the same. With that one,
no, definitely not, because he's doing some shtick that's a little bit similar, but he's always taking questions, so he's got to sort of answer on the spot based on whatever And I don't think the 6 and 7 year old that are asking the question are part of the Disney cast that are.
No, at least what I saw, I guess the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train will always be the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, but the Crush thing was really just always different.
Yeah.
And I remember we kind of went a few times in a row because it was sort of like
it's always different. Yeah.
And it was cool. It was definitely cool. Let's just see what else was there. Let's talk the Coral Reef Restaurant, Chippendale's Harvest Feast.
So Coral Reef is actually in the pavilion where the Nemo and Friends and Turtle Talk with Crush rides and attractions are. It's a pretty cool restaurant. You're basically eating, that the Finding Nemo ride is basically built inside of a big aquarium. So that there's actually an actual aquarium, and they kind of superimpose, the characters from Finding Nemo. So when you're eating there, you are eating in a very large aquarium. A lot of people, ask me about it. I send a decent amount of people there. I have, very specific, questions and standards for people when I'm, planning a trip for them. If you want, I get a lot of people that are like, we want a Disney experience meal. I don't want to go to, a regular restaurant that I can go to at home. I want an experience. Coral Reef is a great experience restaurant because where are you going to eat in this big aquarium? But in Epcot, I mean, I just love all the restaurants in all the countries. So I'll always be very, honest with my customers and clients and say, I personally think the food is a lot better at a lot of the restaurants in the countries. But if you're talking about an experience, I mean, the food there is good. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, there's just a lot better options. But from a an experience standpoint, and the kids really like it. I mean, I have tons of customers that love going there, and they'll go there every time they go back just because they like it so much. So that one's really good. The other one you talked about is called the Garden Grill, which is a restaurant that's been around for many years. It's in the Land Pavilion where Soarin' is. Again, another reason why I've always loved it, it's actually a restaurant that rotates. It rotates very, very slowly, but it moves. And there's actually a ride on the bottom floor next to Soarin' that's called Living with the Land, where it's a boat ride. It takes you through like the greenhouse and does some other and explains a lot of the how they're coming up with new concepts in like farming and all different stuff. Probably not the most exciting things for kids, but I love rides and I always like that one. But from that restaurant, not only does it rotate, but it overlooks parts of that ride where you could see it. So it's always kind of cool. And, over the years, they kind of updated it. So now it's a character meal where you can actually eat with Minnie, Pluto, Chip and Dale. It's probably the best character meal restaurant in terms of, time with characters. Because by the time you're finished with your meal, you will have probably seen each character multiple times, and sometimes you'll even say, okay, I've had enough. But whereas some of these other restaurants, maybe they come around once, and you're looking for them again. In that restaurant, they're just always around.
Now I'm looking at a little book here that is a Disney book, and there was some interesting things here. The Universe of Energy: Discover Where Energy Comes From. Talk about that.
Well, that's an old ride. They actually just recently closed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's kind of where they're building the Guardians of the Galaxy ride.
Oh, scratch that.
It was actually a ride. There was the energy ride, and there was a ride that was there for a while that also recently closed. It was a attraction that had to do with Bill Nye the Science Guy and Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of over in that area. And that's what they recently closed. It was called Ellen's Energy Adventure. It was like a 45-minute ride. It was a little bit of a movie, and then they put you in this theater that actually moved, and it went through this sort of path and through like dinosaurs and stuff, and then it took you into another room which ended with a movie. But by the time you were done, it was a 45-minute experience.
All right. Richard Solomon, Eric Paul, I'm telling you, this is flying by. We'll be right back. Keep it locked in. This is Taking Care of Business. And if you need to, check out bestdisneytrips.com.
Hi, this is Anastasia Zotos from Athens, Greece, and we listen to Richard Solomon on our computers, and we love it.
Richard Solomon, welcome back to Taking Care of Business. You can always catch us on our various social media platforms. And if you want to get our guest, Eric Paul, then you want to go to bestdisneytrips.com. All right. So today's show has been about Epcot. So we kind of really ran through the entire park, and we really got a lot of really good information. Is there anything that we didn't kind of cover in the first two segments of note?
Yeah, no, we just one ride of note called Mission Space, which I think I mentioned, but I didn't really talk about. Mission Space is a simulator ride. There's actually two different versions of it. There's a green mission, which is like a mild version, and an orange mission, which is a more extreme version. It's basically they put you in this like 4-person spaceship, and it simulates you. On the green mission, you go around the Earth, and on the orange mission, you basically go to Mars. It's pretty cool. It's a really cool ride, really popular with kids. If you don't like the idea of being in a 4-person spaceship, it might be a little bit claustrophobic, but other than that, it's a very, very cool experience. And then another attraction where when you are done, you walk out and there's not the same type size that you get at Spaceship Earth, but a smaller area with like a kid playground, and then another thing where you actually pretend to be at Mission Control and some other kind of stuff like that. So Disney's really good with like interactive, fun things, especially when you get off of rides. The other thing I wanted to mention about Epcot was Illuminations, which is their nighttime show. It's a fireworks and laser light show. It takes place over World Showcase Lagoon every night, usually at 9, or whenever the park closes, but it's typically at 9. Very, very cool show. Also very easy to see because you could really stand anywhere around World Showcase Lagoon and really get a good view of it. You can fast pass it. There's specific viewing areas. They've now branded it to there's a dessert party that coincides with Frozen with Norway, where you could eat dessert and get a view of the fireworks, and they actually let you get on the ride also. But it's a really, really great show. There's also one of my favorite things to do is, again, Mexican is one of my favorite cuisines. There's a great place in Mexico that's not in the pavilion. It's right outside. It's called La Hacienda, and it's located right on the lagoon. If you make a dinner reservation a little bit later, 7:30, 7:45, you could actually see the entire show from inside the restaurant while you're eating dinner or while you're eating dessert or just kind of sitting there having a drink. Very, very cool. Pretty much 80% of the restaurant, you have a really good view of the show. There's one small section where you actually can't see it from. But if you make a reservation, when you check in, which is typically about 15 minutes before your reservation, if you tell them that you would like a table with a view of the show, they're going to tell you, it might be up to like a 30, 45-minute wait. It typically isn't, but at least they know that you want to have a table with a view of the show. Very, very cool. They also dim the lights and, pipe in the music and the, commentary that's going on outside, so that you really feel like you're, standing outside watching it. But it's a very, very cool place to watch it. You could also see it from Spice Road Table, which is right outside the Morocco Pavilion, another one of my favorite restaurants, but also another great place to watch the fireworks from while you're eating.
I have to ask this question because it's just one of those things that's just jumping at me. You've been to Disney so many times. Have you ever gotten to see behind the scenes a little bit, like the Underground Network or any of that stuff? Or?
Oh, great story. My oldest son, when he was younger and my other kids weren't tall enough to go on certain rides, he and I would go on rides by ourselves. And we had just this thing where every time we went on Splash Mountain in Magic Kingdom, the ride broke down. And one time it broke down at the very end. It takes you up this big hill and it takes you down this huge drop. And we were right at the top, literally about to go over, and it stopped. And we got stuck there for 45 minutes. And I got all excited. And he's like, Dad, why are you so excited? And I'm like, because they're going to, not when it first stopped, but when we were there for like a half an hour, I said, they're going to take us off this ride. They're going to walk us through the walls. We're going to go underground. We're going to see everything. Well, the ride turned on, and then all of a sudden it was the longest,
pause.
Right, it was the longest anticipation of a drop in history. But then and then we still joke about that, and then our next time when we went alone, just the two of us, we actually got stuck after the big drop, and they had to take us off the ride, and they walked us sort of through the back. But it was very interesting how they do it. They were very specific. They told you, do not take your cell phones out, do not take pictures. Of course, everyone has a cell phone in their hand. They're just trying to snap whatever photos they can. But yeah, I mean, Disney does have an underground city that's even bigger, apparently, than what's above ground. And, sometimes you kind of get glimpses of it. It's pretty cool.
Have you seen any of the glimpses?
I have, and I've known some people that have worked there, and they've kind of told me about it. But yeah, I mean, you could find stuff on the internet,
right? Because I've seen things on the internet where they show you how they move food, and
there's tours that you could actually tours through Disney, through the Magic Kingdom, and basically like Epcot has one called Behind the Seeds, which they take you through the land and something through their greenhouse. The Magic Kingdom has one called Keys to the Kingdom, where it's a couple hours and they actually take you behind the scenes and show you some of these things. So yeah, there's legal ways to do it as well as if you're not getting stuck on a ride.
So if you don't want to put on your ninja outfit and climb over the wall,
right, exactly.
at 1:00 in the morning,
exactly.
So all right. In the little bit of time that we have left, because talking to you is sort of like being in a very fast starship and just traveling through space at light speed or at warp drive. Where do you stay? I mean, there's so many options.
Yeah, there's so many great properties and hotels that are part of Disney. But while we're talking about Epcot, I'll talk about probably my favorite, which is right outside of Epcot. There's what's called Disney's Boardwalk area, which has 3 main hotels, the Boardwalk Inn, and it has the Beach and Yacht Club. Really, really great properties, great location. It's a 5-minute walk there's actually a side entrance to Epcot that actually takes you in through World Showcase, right in between the France and United Kingdom pavilions. And once you leave that exit, the amount of time it takes to walk from that exit to the Beach and Yacht Club is really no more than 5 minutes, and walking at a normal pace. It's really that close. The Beach and Yacht Club are great hotels. They're actually really similar. They're attached to each other. The rooms are exactly the same. The only difference is the Beach Club has villas. The Yacht Club does not, and those villas are part of the Disney Vacation Club. But they share an amazing pool area, multiple pools that are sand bottom pools. They have a big water slide, a little water slide, a lazy river. One of the pools has this huge area in the middle with sand where the kids, it looks like they're on a beach and they could build stuff, and they have pool parties there and the characters come out. It's probably my favorite of all of the, when I talk to clients and if they tell me they want to spend time at the hotel and go to the pool, I mean, there's so many nice pools in a lot of these hotels. That's probably my favorite. I just think it's one of the nicest ones there. In fact, I have a hard time getting my kids to go to the parks when we're at that hotel just because they want to go to those pools. It's also a really, really nice area because on the other side of the lagoon from the Beach and Yacht Club is not only the Boardwalk Hotel, but the actual physical boardwalk, which is like, looks like a boardwalk from Atlantic City. It's got a couple of restaurants on there that are good. It's got Flying Fish, Trattoria Al Forno, which is a good Italian restaurant. It's got an ESPN Club restaurant. It's also got an amazing ice cream place there called Ample Hills Creamery, another good snack value item from your dining plan. There's a bakery there. There's also at night, it's all lit up. There's street performers, there's carnival games. They have these Surrey bikes that you could, ride around the boardwalk where like the whole family could go on this giant car that's really a bicycle.
We did that. That was actually one of the first things we did.
It looks really fun until you realize that none of your kids are pedaling and you're doing all the work. So as long as you go at night, and because during the day it could be really
impressive.
Hot. Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's one of those experience things. Where else are you going to do that?
And the uphill is a little bit more challenging than you would imagine.
Yeah, and my kids were like, "What are you talking about?" I was pedaling. I said, "No, you weren't. You can't even reach the pedals." I mean, well, now they can, but the last time we did it, they couldn't. So that area is really, really nice. The Dolphin and Swan hotels are there too, which are technically Starwood hotels. They're not Disney property hotels, but they're there also. So the same experience as far as, you could walk. There's also a boat that goes to Epcot from that area. And then on the other end of that same area is Hollywood Studios. So if you're staying in those hotels, you're either a 5 to 10 minute walk to either Epcot or Hollywood Studios or a very quick boat ride. And the one thing that, when I get a lot of clients and customers that call me, they always ask about the monorail hotels because of its proximity to the Magic Kingdom and the monorail. And nobody loves the monorail more than I do because it's a ride. And I
love the monorail. Yeah. And if you were a kid, somehow that gets burnt into your memory.
It's another ride. It's another ride. Yeah. But the thing I always tell people is, I said, look, if you're staying at the Grand Floridian or the Contemporary or the Polynesian, which are on the monorail, yes, you're the monorail. You could take the monorail to Epcot. You could take the monorail to Magic Kingdom, but you're a bus to Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. When you're staying at Beach and Yacht and Boardwalk, you're walking or taking a boat to two parks, and you're a bus to the other two parks. So no matter where you stay on these deluxe properties, you're very easily accessible to two parks and a bus ride to the other two. So no matter how you slice it, you're going to be on a bus going to one or two parks. So I always tell people, don't discount the beach and yacht and boardwalk area. It's a really nice area. I actually prefer to stay in that area over the monorail hotels. I just like the whole area better.
Is it also because the monorail properties are just kind of overwhelmed with people, and that's the first. It's like a big, because that's what everybody thinks of.
Yeah, no. I mean, look. I mean, all of those hotels are really popular, and it's not like you're going to stay at one over another, and one's going to be empty.
There's no emptiness in Disney.
There's definitely no emptiness. I just think, people tend to navigate towards the monorail ones first, just because they think they need to be near the Magic Kingdom. And if they're, I had a family that had young kids, and they told me they're going for 6 days, and out of those, they want to go to the park for 4 or 5 days, and they want to go to Magic Kingdom 3 or 4 times. Well, if that's the case, then yes, staying on the monorail makes a lot of sense. But if you're going to hit all the parks, I would tend to look at some of the other properties as well, just because they offer a lot of other great benefits that maybe, you didn't really know about.
Now, what other hotels are there that may not be exactly on property but are close enough by?
Another one of my favorites is called Wilderness Lodge. Wilderness Lodge is actually set right behind the Contemporary, not on the monorail, but it actually has a boat to the Magic Kingdom, and then you're taking a bus to all the other ones. But it'll because it's not on the monorail, it's still a deluxe property, that's the other thing. So Disney has 3 categories of hotels.
Yeah, let's ask, what's the difference in the tiers?
So there's value, there's moderate, and there's deluxe. So all the ones we're talking about are in that deluxe category. But
what makes it deluxe? What are the amenities that give you a deluxe experience versus a value experience?
The rooms are nicer, the properties are nicer. I think the big difference with the deluxe properties are when you go into one of those hotels, typically the rooms are in the main building or connected to the main building. When you're doing, a value or a moderate property, they have basically smaller buildings that are located throughout the property. And when you open the door to your room, you're outside. as opposed to, think of any hotel that you would stay anywhere where you're in a larger building. That's like the main difference, I think, at least for certain people when they want to stay at a deluxe hotel, is that feel of being in this, very elaborate type of hotel. Now, the Grand Floridian, which probably has one of the nicest, lobbies of any hotel you'll go to, very grandiose, and, there's lots of things going on. Great hotel, but a lot of their rooms, if you're not in a club level room, which gives you, access to the club lounge, you're set in one of these buildings that are behind the main lobby. So I've had people where they're like, oh, I only want to stay in Grand Floridian because they think of when they walk into this lobby that it's this elaborate, and it is, but I'm always trying to explain, unless you're staying in one of those rooms that are in that main building, you're walking outside to another building to get to your room. And, if I like to manage people's expectations, I don't want them to, get there and say, my room was really far away and I had to go outside and, it wasn't what they expected. I like to at least, tell them just so they know ahead of time this is what they could be expecting. Is
rain a factor with all of that?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, especially if you have to go outside, absolutely.
When is rainy season? August, September?
Yeah. I mean, August obviously is very rain, basically the summer months, we were there once in August, and like clockwork, like from 4 to 6 p.m. every day it rained. But we went back to the hotel, we knew, and then you go back to the park after. So, but yeah, you definitely want to bring your ponchos in those seasons.
So in the couple minutes left, did we cover all the hotels that were close by to Epcot?
Yes. So
if you want to just, even though we're really talking about Epcot, are there any other places that are advantageous, hotel-wise?
Well, they're actually building an entire gondola system in Disney that's going to connect the Pop Century Hotel, which is a value property, Caribbean Beach, which is a moderate property, and it's going to connect it to Hollywood Studios and to Epcot. They're building that right now. There's actually, a lot of construction going on to build that. So when that comes out, that'll make those hotels very advantageous. They're actually also building a couple of new hotels, but one of them that's going to be for a new vacation club property that's also going to be on this sort of gondola system. So that one's going to have a lot of advantages too. But no, I mean, other than, the monorail hotels being close to the Magic Kingdom and on the monorail, and the beach and yacht and boardwalk being close to Epcot and Hollywood Studios, and even, Wilderness Lodge having that boat, that's really the main advantages of those properties. There's two moderate hotels that I really like, which are Port Orleans Riverside and Port Orleans French Quarter. That actually has a boat that goes to Disney Springs, which is a whole other. It's not a park, but it's a great. It's what used to be Downtown Disney and Pleasure Island. It's a lot of restaurants and shopping and a lot of outdoor stuff, and really, really nice place to walk around. They keep adding new restaurants to it. It's really amazing. They've done a really incredible job. We've gone, in the last 5 weeks, I think I've been to Disney 3 separate times, and I've gone to a new restaurant at Disney Springs every time, just because they keep opening new restaurants, and I like to try them all so that I could at least tell my clients I've been there, and dining's my favorite, so I don't have to have an excuse to go to a restaurant.
Well, we're out of time, but I would like to say one thing, which is I want your job. I schlep in a hot suit and go to court and wait around and all this other stuff, and you're trying new restaurants and all the Disney and get to see all the things. We'll have a minute, but are they always constructing? Are they always renovating? Or are they always reinventing themselves? I mean, it just seems like it's always there's always something.
They really are. That's what's amazing. I don't see it stopping. I mean, as I said before, they're building Guardians of the Galaxy in Epcot. They're building Ratatouille in Epcot. They're taking the Tron roller coaster that's in Disneyland in Japan and building that in Magic Kingdom next to Space Mountain. They're adding new theaters to Magic Kingdom. They're adding all these new restaurants to Disney Springs. Yeah, I mean, they just keep adding and adding and adding. They're basically giving people. They're making you go back. You can't, all my clients that say we want to go and we want to just do it once, and I know they're going to call me to go back because Disney's giving them reasons to.
All right. Well, speaking of back, thank you for coming back for this episode.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And for all of those who are listening, thank you for coming back each week to listen to us on the show. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. And by the way, just in case you want to check it out, bestdisneytrips.com. See you in a week.